Okay, I think we're on live now. All right, just back here, got it. All right, we're live, everyone. Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Brother Doug, I'm hanging in there. Thank you, everyone, all of our brothers and sisters, for keeping me in your prayers. I'm alive here. My mom is going to be doing a lot of, she's going to be doing my portion of the reading today, just because my voice is still horrible. My mom's going to be reading Genesis. What we're going to do, we're going to like split up the readings three ways.
We just split it up, sure.
So my mom's going to do Genesis 40. Brother Joshua is going to do 41 for us. And let's see who else we got here. I don't know if Sister Josie, you're able to, but I was going to ask you to read Genesis 42 when we get there.
I can.
Okay.
I'll read Genesis 42.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I could close up with 43.
Oh, let's see if Dennis wants to read.
Okay. I didn't know they were here.
Yeah, I think Brother Dennis got in like 5-10 minutes ago.
Okay, sure.
So Brother Dennis, if you want, you could close us out by the end of the study and read Genesis 43.
I'm gonna pass.
Genesis 43.
What happened, Brother Joshua?
That I'm gonna pass. Let someone else read.
Okay. All right. So I'll give your part to Brother Dennis then. What chapter did I read? 41. All right. So Brother Dennis will have 41. Josie's going to be 42. And I guess I'll try to suck it up and read 43.
No, I'll read 43.
You're sure you want?
Save your
All right.
voice.
All right.
Save your voice.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, Mom. Whenever you're ready.
Okay, Genesis chapter 40 from the NIV. Okay. Sometime later, the cupbearers and the baker of the king of Egypt offended their master. The king of Egypt, Pharaoh, was angry with his two officials, the chief cupbearer and the chief baker, and put them in custody in the house of the captain of the guard, in the same prison where Joseph was confined. The captain of the guard assigned them to Joseph, and he attended them. After they had been in custody for some time, each of the two men, the cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt, who were being held in prison, had a dream the same night, and each dream had a meaning of its own. When Joseph came to them the next morning, he saw that they were dejected. So he asked Pharaoh's officials who were in custody with him in his master's house, "Why are your faces so sad today?" "We both had dreams," they answered, "but there is no one to interpret them." Then Joseph said to them, "Do not interpretations belong to Yahuwah? Tell me your dreams." So the chief cupbearer told Joseph his dream. He said to him, "In my dream, I saw a vine in front of me, and on the vine were 3 branches. As soon as it budded, it blossomed, and its clusters ripened into grapes. Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes, squeezed them into Pharaoh's cup, and put the cup in his hand." "This is what it means," Joseph said to him. "The 3 branches are 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift up your head and restore you to your position, and you will put Pharaoh's cup in his hand, just as you used to do when you were his cupbearer. But when all goes well with you, remember me and show me kindness. Mention me to Pharaoh and get me out of this prison, or I will be forcibly carried off from the land of the Hebrews, and even here I have done nothing to deserve being put in a dungeon." When the chief baker saw that Joseph had given a favorable interpretation, he said to Joseph, "I too had a dream. On my head were 3 baskets of bread. In the top basket were all kinds of baked goods for Pharaoh, and the birds were eating them out of the basket on my head. This is what it means, Joseph said. The 3 baskets are 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift off your head and hang you on a tree, and the birds will eat away your flesh. Now the 3rd day was Pharaoh's birthday, and he gave a feast for all his officials. He lifted up the heads of the chief cupbearer and the chief baker in the presence of his officials. He restored the chief cupbearer to his position so that he once again put the cup into Pharaoh's hand. But he hanged the chief baker, just as Joseph had said to them in his interpretation. The chief cupbearer, however, did not remember Joseph. He forgot him.
Yeah.
I think Yahweh got a little bit mad at him because he was wanting to be saved by men and not Yahweh.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very... Go ahead, sister.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. No, go ahead. No, I'm sorry. Was I unmuted?
No, I thought you were going to say something. That's why I said go ahead.
No, I didn't. I'm just marking my Bible because the story of the cupbearers,
Yeah.
and in a certain sense, like a cupbearer could be somebody who knows well, right? And will send the word out, but yet at times they're not right within themselves. You know what I mean? But they're still delivering what they heard,
Yeah, the cupbearer in I guess in culture, especially Eastern cultures, the cupbearer would kind of be like he would probably be the closest servant to the king. It would almost be like how you have Abraham send his servant for Isaac to find a wife. So you kind of have like this servant that's very close to, the king or the prince. So that might be some significance there. Trying to think if there's anything else. Obviously, he's in prison. What I thought was really weird was, Yosef was trying to trust in this cupbearer to get him out of the prison rather than trusting in Yahuwah. So that's a very subtle flaw there. You see that doesn't really happen again, but he kind of lacks a little bit of faith there.
Are you okay, Mama?
And I can definitely repeat. Sometimes we start doubting and we feel like we need to do something and yada yada yada.
Yeah, we'd rather hear from man than Yahuwah.
Yeah.
Well, Yahuwah is very distinctive. When he tells us something, we are the ones that try to sharpen our ears and act on what he tells us. We have to act upon it. And then when you don't act upon it, you say, I know you did tell me, didn't you? But I wanted to do my own thing. You know what I mean? and then the consequences right there to face us and slap us,
Yep, that's the truth.
You get what you get coming when you don't obey, but it's never really harsh, but you are convicted. I should have listened, Father. I should have listened. I should have listened. Why wasn't I paying attention to your small, still voice? He's not going to pound us on the head. Not gonna pound us on the head. That's for sure. Well, that's what I noticed about Yahuwah, that he will speak to us. Abba says, don't do that. Don't go there. No, don't go that way. You know better, and you're sitting there going, but I like it, but I want it,
Yeah.
oh my goodness, a flesh. Oh, it's a deal. It's a deal. I'll sell it to somebody else or whatever. And then it turns around, it's not right for you. I always like when I'm going to tell you, I'm as human as can be. I have forgotten, like when I go to buy something I just want it. So I'll order it, I'll pay for it. Or I think I'm paying for it, right? And I'm like going, oh, where's that order at? Well, I never finished off the order. And I said, oh, okay, but you were protecting me. I'm sorry. I got to get better at this, because I get excited to want to, oh, we need it, we'll get it. That's all there's to it. But that's not how he functions. And he actually spares us a lot of time.
What's interesting here is I got my parallel translation.
Joseph.
Got my oh, I'm sorry, sis, go ahead. I
Yeah,
didn't know.
like Joseph, Joseph, well, I mean, like, have you ever heard of somebody say, when they're dying, somebody's dying. Well, when you get up there, will you tell my brother? I said, I'd have done it. Let them know we love them. And, I've done it. Is that something that we shouldn't do? Or because they're going to die. They're going to be in the presence with everybody else, And that's like what Joseph did, Hey, when you get over there, will you tell them, remind them about me when Abba knows about you? Right?
Yep.
Abba knows every situation that we're going through.
Yeah.
Trust.
I thought it was interesting, sis, in the parallel Bible that you and me have, I
Uh-huh.
looked on the NLT side where it talks about the guy was hanged. It actually says he was, the NLT says he was impaled.
Mm.
And it kind of reminds me of the impalement.
Yes.
Because a lot of the times in the New Testament, it will be worded in English, he was hung on a tree. But actually, he's impaled. So, like, where does it say it in the NLT here? The interpretation represents 3 days. 3 days from now, Pharaoh will lift you up and impale your body on a pole. Yeah, which is actually what happened at the crucifixion, by the way. That's what happened to Yahusha, by the way. He was impaled on a pole, on a storos,
Was it a top or was it not a top? Was it? It was not a tree then. It's impaled.
Well, a tree is made out of wood. So in I guess if you want to extend the definition of the tree being made out of usually trees are made out of wood.
Right.
Technically, he is hung on a tree, but it's not hung like we think, or like the lynchings. No, he wasn't lynched. He was impaled on a piece of wood, an upright pole. So, and the pole though would have been, from a tree. It was probably a log that was cut down from a tree. So, in essence, it's not wrong for our Bibles to say he was hung on a tree. We just have the wrong understanding of, oh, there was a noose around his neck and this and that.
No.
Because the whole Atlantic slave trade, that's already in our minds. We're already thinking of hung as in, oh, he's got a noose around his neck and he's hung on a whole tree. That's not what it's talking about.
Okay.
So that's what I like about the NLT. Sometimes they paraphrase, and so they take the meaning of hung on a tree to be impaled on a pole, which is essentially what happened to Messiah.
Okay. So you got we got pictures. Well, man in Hollywood has done the long pole and then the short pole that goes from hand to hand.
Yeah.
And then they took I don't know which one it is, because somebody had to help him carry that tree, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And so what part was, I guess it would be the the cross part would be
Yeah.
the one that Yahusha was carrying, or was it the
Yeah.
long pole because it was too heavy?
Yeah,
I mean,
well, the pole itself would have been pretty big. As far as a crossbar being on it,
yeah.
I don't know if there's any proof to that. Where we get the idea it was a cross is because the Latin Vulgate, they started changing words and they put the word crux in there,
Uh-huh.
like crucifix. So
Yeah.
where you get the whole idea of him on a crucifix is really from the Vulgate.
Mhm.
You don't see that from earlier Greek manuscripts.
Mhm.
They've always had the Greek word stauros, which means upright pole or upright stake. So the crossbar technically would not be there if we're going to be historically accurate. Now I don't think it matters much, but I'm just saying that's to be historically accurate. I don't think it was how Hollywood portrays it. I think yes, his hands and feet were pierced, but that doesn't mean that he had to have his arms, crossed like that for his hands to be pierced. So that's not a necessity. For that to happen. So, so I personally believe it's an upright stake or pole, and really that's how they did it back then in those days, and that was actually capital punishment too in Torah for someone that did something worthy of capital punishment. It says to hang them on a tree.
Yeah.
So if hanging someone on a tree actually in that cultural context means impaling them, that makes perfect sense why what happened to Yahusha, because to the Romans, they would have thought he was worthy of death because he's trying to take Caesar's place. That was their biggest problem, was that the Yahudim of that time was telling them, oh, he's trying to be our king. And the Pharisees were basically pinning Pilate against a wall, saying,
Yeah.
if you don't kill him, you're not a friend of Caesar's, because Caesar's your king, right? And so
Yeah.
that's really what was going on. But from what I've seen in a cultural context, being hung is actually talking about being hung on a tree is actually talking about being impaled to a log, an upright stake or a log. That's what it actually means to be hung on a tree in that cultural context, rather than what we would call it today. So that that's the confusion there. That's so. But anyway, I just thought it was interesting that this guy that's supposed to be hung on a tree, that the NLT worded it that way. I just thought that was interesting. Also, I wonder if there's any significance pointing to Yahusha here with the 3 days, 3 days here, 3 days there, that the vision's going to take place in 3 days. So I thought it was interesting. But so who do we have next for you, Mom?
I think it's Dennis, I think. It's on
Yeah.
41, I think.
All right. Brother Dennis, if you're ready, I was going to have you read chapter 41.
Chapter 41.
Yeah.
Okay. And it came to be at the end of 2 years' time that Pharaoh had a dream and saw him standing by the river, and saw 7 cows coming up out of the river, fine looking and fat, and they fed amongst the reeds. Then saw 7 other cows coming up after them out of the river, ugly and lean of flesh, and stood by the other cows on the bank of the river. And the ugly and lean flesh cows ate up the 7 fine looking and fat cows. Then Pharaoh awoke, and he slept and dreamed a second time, and saw 7 heads of grain coming up on one stalk, plump and good, and saw 7 lean heads, scorched by the east wind, coming up after them. And the 7 lean heads allowed the 7 plump and complete swallow the 7 plump and complete heads. Then Pharaoh awoke and saw it was a dream. And it came to be in the morning that his spirit was moved, and he sent and called for all the magicians of Mitzrayim and all its wise men. And Pharaoh related to them his dreams, but there was no one who could interpret them for Pharaoh. Then the chief cupbearer spoke to Pharaoh, saying, I remember my crimes this day, when Pharaoh was wroth with his servants, and put me in confinement in the house of the captain of the guard, both me and the chief baker. Each one of us dreamed a dream in one night. He and I, each of us dreamed according to the interpretation of his own dream. And there was with us a Hebrew youth, a servant of the captain of the guard, and he related to him, and he interpreted our dreams for us. To each man he interpreted according to his own dream. And it came to be, as he interpreted for us, so it came to be. He restored me to my office, and he hanged him. Then Pharaoh sent and called Joseph, and they hurriedly brought him out of the dungeon, and he shaved and changed his garments and came to Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, I have dreamed a dream, and there is no one to interpret it. Now I myself have heard it said that you understand the dream to interpret it. Joseph answered Pharaoh, saying, It is not in me. Let Elohim answer Pharaoh with peace. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, See, in my dream I stood on the bank of the river and saw 7 cows coming up out of the river, fine looking and fat, and they fed amongst the reeds. Then saw 7 other cows coming up after them, poor and very ugly and lean of flesh, such ugliness as I have never seen in all the land of Mitzrayim. And the lean of flesh and ugly cows ate up the first 7, the fat cows. Yet when they had eaten them up, no one would have known that they had eaten them, for they were as ugly as at the beginning. Then I awoke. Also, I looked in my dream and saw 7 heads coming up on one stalk, complete and good. So, then saw 7 heads, withered, lean, scorched by the east wind, coming up after them. And the lean heads swallowed the 7 good heads. And I spoke to the magicians, but there was no one who could explain it to me. And Joseph said to Pharaoh, The dream of Pharaoh is one. Elohim has shown Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 good cows are 7 years, and the 7 good heads are 7 years. It is one dream. And the 7 lean and ugly cows which came up after them are 7 years. And the 7 empty heads scorched by the east wind are 7 years of scarcity of food. This is the word which I spoke to Pharaoh. Elohim has shown Pharaoh what he is about to do. See, 7 years of great plenty are coming in all the land of Mitzrayim, but after them 7 years of scarcity of food shall arise, and all the plenty be forgotten in the land of Mitzrayim. And the scarcity of food shall destroy the land, and the plenty shall not be remembered in the land because of the scarcity of food following, for it is very severe. And the dream was repeated to Pharaoh twice, because the word is established by Elohim, and Elohim is hastening to do it. And now, let Pharaoh look for a discerning and wise man, and set him over the land of Mitzrayim. Let Pharaoh do this, and let him appoint overseers over the land to take up 1/5 of the land of Mitzrayim in the 7 years of plenty. And let them gather all the food of those good years that are coming, and store up grain under the hand of Pharaoh, and let them keep food in the cities. And the food shall be for a store for the land for the 7 years of scarcity of food, which shall be in the land of Mitzrayim, and do not let the land be cut off by the scarcity of food. And the word was good, Tob, in the eyes of Pharaoh, and in the eyes of all his servants. And Pharaoh said to his servants, could we find another like him, a man in whom is the spirit of Elohim? Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, since Elohim has shown you all this, there is no one as discerning and wise as you. Be over my house, you yourself, and at your mouth all my people shall kiss, only in the throne am I greater than you. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, see, I have set you over all the land of Mitzrayim. And Pharaoh took his seal ring off his hand and put it on Joseph's hand, and he dressed him in garments of fine linen and put a gold chain around his neck. And he had him ride in the second chariot which he had, and they cried out before him, bow and knee. And he set him over all the land of Mitzrayim. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, I am Pharaoh, and without a word from you, let no man lift his hand or foot in all the land of Mitzrayim. And Pharaoh called Joseph's name Zaphnath-Anah, and he gave him as a wife Asenath, daughter of Potiphar, priest of On. And Joseph went out over all the land of Mitzrayim. Now Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh, sovereign of Mitzrayim. And Joseph went out from the presence of Pharaoh and went throughout all the land of Mitzrayim. And in the 7 years of plenty, the ground brought forth generously. He gathered all the food of the 7 years which were in the land of Mitzrayim, and laid up the food in the cities. He laid up in every city the food of the fields which surrounded them. Thus Joseph gathered very much grain as the sand of the sea, until he ceased counting, for it was without number. And to Joseph were born 2 sons before the years of scarcity of food came, whom Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On, bore to him. And Joseph called the name of the firstborn Manasseh, for Elohim has made me forget all my soul and all my father's house. And the name of the second he called Ephraim, for Elohim has caused me to bear fruit in the land of my affliction. And the 7 years of plenty, which were in the land of Mitzrayim, came to an end. And the 7 years of scarcity of food began to come, as Joseph had said, and the scarcity of food was in all lands, but in all the land of Mitzrayim there was bread. But when all the land of Mitzrayim hungered, and the people cried to Pharaoh for bread, Pharaoh said to all the Mitzrites, go to Joseph, do whatever he says to you. And the scarcity of food was over all the face of the earth, and Joseph opened all the storehouses and sold to the Mitzrites, and the scarcity of food was severe in the land of Mitzrayim. And all the earth came to Joseph in Mitzrayim to buy grain, because the scarcity of food was severe in all the earth. It's interesting that Hebrew names always mean something. Manasseh, where I forget. Ephraim, for Elohim has caused me to bear fruit.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
See here. So again, in 41, which Brother Dennis just read, again in the NLT, instead of just hung on a tree, it says impaled on a pole. So I do like their interpretation of that, which would actually agree with history, on how they would execute people with, the impalements and all that, with capital punishment. Let's see here. Is beyond. So let's see here. A lot of these dreams remind me actually of Enoch, where Enoch would be given these like prophetic visions from Yahuwah that were allegorized as animals, usually, and even the history of mankind from Adam all the way to Moses was categorized as animals in that one part of the book of Enoch. So I find it interesting. It's kind of similar with these visions or dreams Yahuwah gives Pharaoh. Pharaoh's like seeing, he's like, what's the one? He's seeing cows, skinny cows versus the fattened cows and all that. Go ahead, Brother Joshua.
Famine that's taking place, it just really kind of, in my opinion, it kind of has a parallel towards the famine of the word that we know is coming. That's what I'm seeing. And you have Joseph storing up grain. You have him storing up a lot of the times the word is likened unto bread. Bread is made from grain. So you have him storing up all this food. And in the same way, we see the enemy, they have the word stored up in their Vatican place. But regardless, you're going to have this famine of the word that comes, and those that don't know the word, those that haven't stored it up in their hearts, going to have people looking to hear the word, and they're going to have only one place to go, and that's to the enemy. Whether you want to call that Egypt, whether you want to call it Babylon, regardless, only person they're going to be able to go to hear the word is the enemy or the anti-Messiah. I don't know. That's kind of just what I'm seeing. I thought that was interesting.
I don't think that we'll be able to even have the word. I think he will just say he's God, and he'll tell us what to believe and what not to. I think that's how bad he's going to be.
I think he's going to use the word just because he wants to do so far everything that, as far as his character he's shown, is that he wants to be Yahuwah. He wants to do everything that Yahuwah does. And so far he's been very successful at using the word to promote what he wants. He takes it, he twists it.
Twisting it. Exactly.
Yeah, he's gonna have to at least play the part. I agree with Brother Joshua. To piggyback off of what Brother Joshua was saying, the beast himself is gonna have to act like, quote unquote, the Moshiach. So he's gonna have to, quote unquote, act the part. He's gonna have to be reading from the Torah. He's gonna have to be acting like, oh, I'm upholding Torah. See, I know what it says in Deuteronomy. You can only appoint a king of your brothers, and so he's gonna have to play that part to a pretty to a T, at least for his first 3.5 years. The first 3.5 years of that covenant, he's gonna have to make it look like he is the Mashiach to the Jews. Because some Orthodox Jews out there actually know their Bibles. Believe it or not, there are some in that land right now that actually know the Torah back and forth. So they're not, he's gonna have to trick them a little bit. He can't just come out and, like the old saying goes, Satan's not gonna be coming out waving his hands. Hey guys, I'm Satan, worship me. He's got to deceive people. So the easiest way to deceive them is, really? Gosh. Sorry about that, guys. I apologize. Oh, my goodness. No, with these notifications. All right, so he's going to have all of the he's going to have to at least appear to be keeping Torah. He's going to at least have to appear to be, okay, I'm bringing back the sacrifices, guys, just to let you know. We got to get these oxen in here. We got to get the sheep in here. We got to get the rams in here. We're going to bring back this Levitical system. And just for them to have a king in general, the king is supposed to read the Torah. He's supposed to know the Torah. Actually, I think it actually says he's supposed to write his own copy of the Torah for himself. So for him to fool us, I would agree with Joshua, not to fool us, but to fool them that are going to follow him. He's got to act like the Messiah. He can't show his true colors right away.
Okay, I get that. I'm just saying really that if you know the scriptures and if you know what comes first or who comes first, then you'll recognize that that's who he is.
Yeah. And I think brothers Joshua's point was actually agreeing with yours, sis, that they are going to physically take it away, but that's why we need to learn it right now. And I always tell people, the more you read it right now, the more you seek him right now, the less you're going to have to worry about owning a physical Bible by the time the tribulation happens. The less you're going to have to worry about that.
That's true.
And I always tell people that, because honestly, he's given it to us for about hundreds and thousands of years. Problem is that generation after generation just lets our parents' generations, our grandparents' generations, our great grandparents' generations have just let their Bibles collect dust, and they've had plenty of time to seek him. He's told them, seek me while I may be found. I think it's right there in the book of Isaiah. So it is definitely paramount. Would be the right word to say, is very, very important for us to be seeking him while he is able to be seeked out. And so just thought it's very interesting. And I definitely think that, even though it's talking about a physical famine in Joseph's time, it's definitely pointing to a spiritual famine.
There's got to be a role for the false prophet too, which I believe is the Pope. And I believe he's the one that's going to be telling us what to believe, or telling the people that listen to him what to believe. But it will not be what Yahweh wants. In other words, Yahweh wants all people to obey his commandments, but they're going to give out the Noahide laws to all the so-called Gentiles and tell them that they can't keep the law. Only Judaism can keep the law. And that's how I see it going.
And which the only people that are going to reject that would be us, because the majority of the world doesn't even care about keeping Torah, to be honest.
True.
There's very few, unless you're called by Yahuwah at that point in time. Most of the world is already going to be preconceived bias against keeping Torah anyway. Most Christians would, in modern day Christianity today, they would accept that with open arms. They would be like, "Thank you, Mr. Rabbi." Oh, I don't have to, so I don't think there's going to be much pushback from that with the world in general sense. People like us, we're going to push back. We're not going to take that. And a lot of our brothers and sisters might have to become martyrs, because just the reality is that in their own, we've done a study on this, so I don't want to go deep into this rabbit hole, but we actually have a video on our channel about this whole topic with the Noahide laws and all that. But just to put it in a nutshell, if you believe that Yahusha is Yahuwah, one entity, they are going to try to kill you. They consider that idolatry. So anyone that professes that, is going to be, you know, off with the head, you know, the guillotines that they've been hiding. You know, so there's going to be a lot of martyrs. And that's what people don't realize. When you accept the Noahide laws, you got to pretty much reject Messiah. It's if you're going to accept the Noahide laws, then you have to accept what they believe to be the creator. And you know, so in essence, you have to go away from Yahuwah to accept Noahide laws.
Right.
Go ahead, Brother Ray. I noticed you had your hand up for a little bit.
Oh, thanks. I guess I wonder what exactly, and I guess this might be a dumb question because I'm sure the enemy probably has a bunch of deceptions lined up, but I wonder what the deception really is, like what we're supposed to be expecting. I'm not sure if there's an actual answer or if people have like a bunch of horses and they're in the race, like Brother Zach says. I guess I wonder. But I've heard of the Noahide laws before, and I've wondered about that. I think there's like 7, and they're kind of like generic laws. They don't really, I mean, they're pretty. I guess they're nothing too hard to follow. But I've heard that that's kind of that's gonna be like justification to put a lot of believers to death. Is what I've heard like many years ago though. So I don't know too much about
their
them.
view of idolatry. Their one of the 7 laws is like don't worship any other god, right? To them, if you don't worship Hashem, you're worshiping any other god. If you believe in a creator that is his own son, which we believe in the oneness, right? We are idolaters in their eyes, and they will use that to kill us. That's what Judaism believes. Even old rabbinical Phariseeism, whatever you want to call it, the religion of the first century that the Pharisees and the Sadducees had, Yahusha was considered a blasphemer. Why? Because he claimed to be Yahuwah. So think about it. What's the difference between Phariseeism and today's Judaism? Not much. Okay, that same spirit's still behind it. Anyone that believes that Yahusha is the Father in human form will be killed by them, and they will consider us idolaters, and they will make
I
the world.
think you're right. Yeah.
Because think about it, Yahusha said to them, he's like, "Why do you want to stone me? I did nothing for you to stone me." And they said, "Oh, you commit blasphemy. You made yourself equal with Elohim."
Yeah. I and my Father are one.
They're telling him point blank, we're stoning you because we don't believe you're the Most High in human flesh. They're literally telling him why they're trying to stone him. Go ahead, Brother Joshua.
Based off of that, that's why I don't believe that the Noahide laws are going to play a part, maybe in the beginning, but not in the ultimate role of things, because for the most part, all of us agree that Namrud is going to be the anti-Messiah, that he's going to be resurrected, that he's going to be brought. The whole world knows that, or the whole world believes that Tammuz, you know, when Namrud died, that Tammuz, the spirit of Namrud, went into his son Tammuz, and that Tammuz became the very same person. So the majority of the world believes that the Messiah that they worship is his father. So if Judaism doesn't have that belief, you know, that the son is the father, then that's not the same religion as the anti-Messiah's religion.
Yeah. I mean, yes, I guess in a way that's true, but in a way they could probably work their way around that, because they're not gonna openly admit that the beast is who he is. They're not going to portray him as Nimrod or Apollo or any of that.
No, not at first.
No.
Yeah, they're so. First of all, the Jews wouldn't even know that's who it is. I don't. He's probably going to disguise himself. He's not going to look like himself. He's probably going to take some other human form take on some other flesh that no one would, even pinpoint that as him. Hence why Caesar Borgia is the big image being promoted.
Majority of people do know that's who they worship. Maybe not the Jews, but the rest of the world leaders and the elite, they know who they worship.
Yeah.
And also the Noahide laws will feature Sunday worship.
Mhm.
And as we all know, that's the wrong day.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the Noahide laws will be like the initial covenant, that part of the initial covenant that's made for the 7 years. And I think it will be part of the whole peace treaty nonsense, the world
Right.
peace. And, halfway through that covenant, he's going to break it anyway. So it's really, I don't think the Noahide laws are going to be permanent in the tribulation. They're kind of just to get, a covenant started, so you have every nation abiding by the same rules. And I think it's a tool for them to get rid of us. It's a tool to, they might be even using Judaism to get rid of us. They're using them as pawns, and just to kill people like us, because they know Judaism is going to have a swayed opinion about who the creator is. Judaism does not believe the creator has a son. They don't believe that the creator, can become human and all that. So they know that Judaism is probably the easiest religion to use to get that accomplished, because almost every other religion has no problem with what we believe. Matter of fact, a lot of these other pagan religions have a counterfeit version of what we believe about Yahuwah and Yahusha. A lot of these other religions, they're pretty much just perverting that into a counterfeit version. But Judaism is like one of the few out there that does not believe the creator could become a human to save us. They utterly reject that idea. I think, Islam wouldn't accept an idea like that either, right? They wouldn't accept that Allah could
I don't
become.
think so. No.
Yeah, so Judaism and Islam seem to be the two religions out there that would accept easily that interpretation of, do not worship any other gods, meaning you don't even worship, someone that claims to be the Father and is in human form. They would look at that as idolatry, both of those religions.
Yeah, they just call him Mighty One, Allah.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think, this is just my opinion anyway, I do think that it will be used to a certain extent, to usher in that world peace covenant. But anyway, so I found it interesting going back to Brother Dennis's reading here. I did find it interesting that we see here towards the end of the chapter, Yusuf is made ruler in Egypt. So he's kind of given the same, honor as Daniel was in Babylon. I personally see a lot of parallels between Yusuf and Daniel. When you parallel like Genesis 41 or just like the whole later chapters of Genesis with the book of Daniel, there's a lot of parallels.
Mm-hmm.
The Pharaoh of Joseph's time was very similar to Nebuchadnezzar, misled, but eventually it seems like he starts to at least acknowledge Yahuwah, or at least know about him. What's interesting too is you have Potiphar, who was the guy that his wife is the one that wanted to sleep with Joseph, right?
That's right.
So I kind of find it interesting. You get some vindication towards the end of this chapter that Potiphar's daughter actually marries Joseph. So I kind of find that funny.
It's interesting, isn't it?
So, and Pharaoh's the one to give her to him. So it says Pharaoh gave Yosef a new Egyptian name, Zaphanath Paneah. I have no idea what that means.
Yeah.
Oh, really? This is interesting. Got a little footnote for the NLT here. Zaphanath Paneah probably means Elohim speaks and lives. That'd be interesting if that's true. He also gave him a wife whose name was Asenath. She was the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On. In the Septuagint, that would be Heliopolis.
Right.
On would be Heliopolis. So Joseph took charge of entire land. So, yeah, it's pretty interesting. Land produced bumper crops during those years. Joseph gathered all the crops grown in Egypt and stored grains. So anyway, pretty interesting. So yeah. So yeah, it's very interesting, like Brother Dennis said before, about the meaning of names.
Yeah.
What I really like about Ephraim is that his name means made me fruitful in this land of my grief. And it's interesting that Ephraim means fruitful, because we see that through Ephraim, you have the multitude of nations in Genesis 48:19. So I find that interesting. Or the completeness of the nations. Go ahead, Brother Joshua. I think, is that old?
I don't know why they would be getting anything Elohim derived from that, because it's Pharaoh that named him for one.
Yeah.
But the Strong says it means treasury of the esteemed rest. Well, Strong's and BDP say that, something along those lines.
I don't know. Guess I'll have to throw that out. Yeah. Usually their footnotes is very accurate. That's very weird. Whatever. I don't know why. Yeah, it's a story houses. All right, so who do we have again for 42, Mom?
Josie?
Josie.
Josie.
Okay, so whenever you're ready, Sister Josie, we're at Genesis 42.
Genesis 42. Thank you. One moment.
You're welcome, sis. Take your time.
Okay. And when Jacob saw that there was grain in Mitzrayim, Jacob said to his sons, "Why do you look at each other?" And he said, "See, I have heard that there is grain in Mitzrayim. Go down to that place and buy for us there, and let us live and not die." And Joseph's 10 brothers went down to buy grain in Mitzrayim. But Jacob did not send Joseph's brother Benjamin with his brothers, for he said, "Lest some harm come to him." And the sons of Israel went to buy grain among those who journeyed. For the scarcity of food was in the land of Canaan, and Joseph was the governor over the land. He was the one who sold to all the people of the land. And Joseph's brothers came and bowed down before him with their faces to the earth. And Joseph saw his brothers and recognized them, but he acted as a stranger to them and spoke to them harshly and said to them, "Where do you come from?" And they said, "From the land of Canaan to buy food." So Joseph recognized his brothers, but they did not recognize him. And Joseph remembered the dreams which he had dreamed about them, and said to them, "You are spies. You have come to see the nakedness of the land." And they said to him, "No, my master, but your servants have come to buy food." We are all one man's sons. We are trustworthy. Your servants are not spies. But he said to them, no, but you have come to see the nakedness of the land. And they said, your servants are 12 brothers, the sons of one man in the land of Canaan. And see, the youngest is with our father today, and one is no more. And Joseph said to them, it is as I spoke to you, saying, you are spies. By this you shall be proven by the life of Pharaoh. You do not leave this place unless your youngest brother comes here. Send one of you and let him bring your brother while you are kept in prison. So let your words be proven to see whether there is any truth in you, or else by the life of Pharaoh, you are spies. And he put them all together in prison for 3 days. And Yosef said to them the third day, do this and live, for I fear Elohim. If you are trustworthy, let one of your brothers be confined to your prison house, and you go, bring grain for scarcity of food of your houses, and bring your youngest brother to me, and let your words be confirmed, and you do not die. And so they did. And they said to each other, truly we are guilty concerning our brother, for we saw the distress of his life when he pleaded with us, yet we did not listen. That is why this distress has come upon us. And Reuben answered them, saying, did I not speak to you, saying, do not sin against the boy? And you would not listen. And see, his blood is now required of us. And they did not know that Joseph understood them, for he spoke to them through an interpreter. And he turned himself away from them and wept, but came back to them and spoke to them. And he took Simeon's from them and bound him before their eyes. And Joseph commanded, and they filled their sacks with grain. Also to put back every man's silver to his sack, and to give them food for the journey. And thus it was done for them. So they loaded their donkeys with grain and went from there. And as one of them opened his sack to give his donkey fodder at the lodging place, he saw his silver, for there it was in the mouth of his sack. And he said to his brothers, my silver has been returned, and there it is in my sack. And their hearts sank, and they were afraid, saying to each other, what is this that Elohim has done to us? And so they came to Jacob their father in the land of Canaan, and reported to him all that befell them, saying, the master of the land, spoke to us harshly, and took us for spies of the land. But we said to him, we are trustworthy, we are not spies. We are 12 brothers, sons of our father. One is no more, and the youngest is today with our father in the land of Canaan. And the man, the master of the land, said to us, by this I know that you are trustworthy. Leave one of your brothers here with me, and take food for the scarcity of food of your households, and go. And bring your youngest brother to me. Then I know that you are not spies, but that you are trustworthy. I give your brother to you, and you move about in the land. And it came to be, as they emptied their sacks, that look, the bundle of each man's silver was in his sack. And when they and their father saw the bundles of silver, they were afraid. And Jacob their father said to them, you have bereaved me. Yosef is no more, and Simon is no more, and you would take Benjamin. All this is against me. So Reuben spoke to his father, saying, take the lives of my 2 sons if I do not bring him back to you. Put him in my hands, and I myself bring him back to you. But he said, my son is not going down with you, for his brother is dead, and he is left alone. If any should come to him along the way in which you go, then you would bring down my gray hair with sorrow to Sheol. Wow.
Heavy. I got a few things here.
Go ahead, sis.
Okay. In a nutshell, Abba does give us dreams, and some can get the interpretation, some don't. But like I had my dream, and I'll share my dream with you. If I hadn't about the snake, okay. And then it's funny. This young boy, he had the Torah in him because of his wisdom. His wisdom was to not say anything, but to get Benjamin to him some way, somehow, to know that his dad was alive. He was wise enough to have his servants put back the money in the bags. He was wise enough to not show them. And listen, sometimes you just got to shut up and let Yahuwah do his thing, because he didn't say anything. You know, it's like if you can't hold your lips for a surprise because you're so excited. Do you know what I mean? But Joseph, in pain and agony, he turns his head, he sheds tears, he cries, but he's doing something that he knows that his goal is to see his dad and his brother. So he's got to be wise to say, okay, look, I'm not taking from my brothers. I'm going to put back your gold, their money, back in the sack, fill it up with grain. And all the servants listen to him. Okay. And remember, in his dream, he said, you will bow down to me, in his dream. And so I think it's very wise of this, the way that he handled it, because sometimes I don't want to say it was deception, but it was what he had to use to bring his brother to him. And he turned his back. He never looked at, like it says here, and he turned himself away from them and wept. You know, that says, you know, men have hearts. Men, my daddy had a big heart. My dad used to always tell us, it doesn't matter. It's going to be all right. Everything's going to be all right. Watch the end. Everything's going to be all right. And, you know, sometimes I know he felt my pain. He knew my pain. But my dad always said, it's going to be all right. And he's right. Everything's all right in Yahuwah. There's nothing wrong and can't go wrong. So I'm just in total awe of this. And then I was noticing in here, and I got the King James right now, study, that it said, and the man who is Lord of the land. Now, that Lord is lowercase Lord. It's not even a capital L, and then Lord, It is total Lord, lowercase. So that just like kind of like, wow, that stood out to me as well. And then, you know, how he kept Simeon, and how these brothers repented, and how sometimes, look, out of all 12, one was in the dungeon or in the pit, and the 11 out of one out of the 11 said, don't do this to him. sometimes we gotta listen. Sometimes we might not agree. We might all be majority rules, but if there's that one that says, wait a minute, don't do this. You know what I mean? It was all used for a good purpose. But there was one that his string pulled. And he said, don't do this to him. But he went around along with the crowd. So, you know, he's the one that this is what's coming down to us. This is what we did. This is what we did to our brother. We're the blood of his, basically, his blood is on it. So you guys always check before you before you talk. And I've got to learn. I'm a flappy. You know, I got to learn and bite my tongue and observe more. I think that as we're getting into these days, I think we need to be a lot more white with the people we entertain and the people that are around. And you know, may Yahuwah, I always feel, you know, if Father says go, don't go. Don't go. To be honest with you, and I'll be straight out honest. I wanted to go be with my family for 4th of July. Not that I believe in 4th of July, but I like fireworks. I love firework shows. They're my favorite. I just like, wow, beautiful. So I went, but that night I felt like I almost died again. I couldn't breathe. I don't know if it was smoke from the fireworks because I'm right underneath them. And I'm just like, oh man, Papa, look at that beauty. I like beautiful things. I like creation. I like what I see. But I had already told don't go. Don't go. You know, like you should stay home here, or you know, stay home, don't go. And I said, but Papa, I'm so glad to be alive. You know, I know everybody was coming over there and it was like, you know, not that I'm working 4th of July, because I know I see everybody at one time and I can also say hello and say thank you for your prayers and, you know, also, you know, show the miracle Yahuwah has done for me and for me. There was a lot of reasons why I felt like it was more weighing to go, but deep down inside, I didn't listen to that voice, and maybe I wouldn't have had to experience that. So now I got to listen to the voice because I'm warning. When Abba gives you, don't go, and he tells you, or whatever, you know, we all have our individual with him. And this is, you know, what Reuben had felt. Known to this, but I guided with the crowd. He fought others. And instead, you know, maybe two of them could be in the hole. You know what I mean? But there was only one. He still got persuaded to shut his mouth and to live the life for what, 40 years? How many years was it that Joseph was in Egypt or wherever he was at in Canaan? How many years was that? So them years they kept that secret, that lie to their father. Somewhere they had to feel the agony and the pain of what they did. And I think this was it, because now they saw their father spill out his heart and cry. Now they had to go get the next that they knew meant the world to their father. You know what I mean? But they did it this time. They followed protocol. But it took many years and a lot harder, because I'm going to tell you, when you do something wrong and you don't face it and you don't do what's right, it'll come to haunt you. It will haunt you every night or every 3 months, every 6 months. I should have done this. Should have done this. Should have went. You know, and that's what we got to deal with. Have to bring it to you right away. Forgive me, forgive me. Teach me more. Move in me, stir in me more, that I will be better. You know, and I would have hated to live that life. You know, I'm not I know a boy, he has no idea who his father is. Well, I do. And it's my best friend doesn't even know she has a little brother out there, but I do know her father was playing around. So you know what? I said, I'm going to tell her she can do whatever she wants with it. World enough. So I did tell her, what? You have a brother. You have a brother out there, and go find him. You can do whatever you want. It's off my shoulders. Once I thought it was fair, you to know. So I left it in her hands. If they want her to go look for their brother, fine, go. But once I found out, I thought that's dirty. It's so dirty and so sad. This kid, oh, that's the worst. He didn't know who his family. He's got 7 brothers. You know, and it's not even trying to start any trouble, but because I know, you know, I don't want to live with that the rest of my life. Secret, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
you know, it's like, how did they live? Can you imagine knowing that their brother could be still alive and their dad? They saw their dad crying, tearing his. I mean, the life went out. Part of his life. When a sibling dies, a father, mother, a little bit goes with little heartache, little pain, a little, say, when you somebody, it goes with the minute. It's just how do you say? I don't know how to say the word, but it's like not that we honor, worship anybody's death, but something is missing. Not that you're gonna die because they're gone. Josie, oh, you know what? Your son was murdered. My brothers, 2 brothers, my dad, my brother took him his own life, and I didn't know how to deal with that. It took 10 years to be able to talk about crying. Still today, I can feel not that he stopped that these guys knew that he was alive and saw their dad's agony. What a torment for them until the end of the story. Isn't that something?
Mhm. Yeah, it's hard, sis. Going back to the story of Yusuf, and you were talking about his brothers. I would say his brothers weren't feeling sorry as much as fearful. As far as I'm pretty sure they felt bad for what they did, but the fact of the matter is that when they finally realized this is Joseph, they're like, oh crap, this guy's gonna want to kill us now.
Yeah.
And you see it, I kind of read ahead, so I don't want to ruin the ending of Genesis for anyone, but they even point blank say to him, oh, our father told us to tell you. So mind you, they're lying now to save their lives. They're lying. Oh, well, he said, just have mercy on your brothers. Your brothers were stupid, yada, 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 yada. So they're more concerned about their own behinds than really repenting. They're kind of like half-heartedly repenting at that point. I'm pretty sure at some point in time they fully repented, but
They're scared for their lives.
they're more concerned about their physical lives at that point. They're like, oh crud, he better not still be mad at me.
Yes, because it says it over and over in the chapter I just read that they were fearful constantly. They were more afraid of the consequences.
Most definitely. I mean, that's what I'm saying. What a way to live. For 40,
Yeah, exactly.
well, how many years was it? Is it 40 years or is it?
No. You're thinking of the whole time that the seed of Abraham was in Canaan and Egypt was like the 434. But the time that Joseph was sold into Egypt, he was only there for maybe 20, 30 years. I mean, Mom, what?
Something, I remember.
He was 17.
17.
I thought I was gonna say 17 or 18, yeah.
Yeah, so
17,
But that's
and
a hard life to live.
he became, Pharaoh's
he was how
second
old?
man. 30.
30. So you're talking about like 15, 16 years about, you know.
I thought about 17 or 18.
So yeah, like, he where the whole rest of the timeline comes in is when the rest of the family comes to Egypt, and then they settle there for a certain amount of time.
Right.
They actually settle there and have children. He
Right.
he has his wife Asenath give him his two boys, which just happened to make up most of the northern house. So, I find it interesting that Ephraim and Manasseh come from a Gentile mother. Kind of interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting.
So, because they make up 2 of the 10 houses that a lot of Gentiles are going to be grafted into.
Yeah, that is ironic.
So, I find that interesting.
Yeah.
What was I gonna say? But yeah, you see that the love that Jacob has for Joseph, it's kind of like the same love Abraham had for Isaac. He's like, I don't think I'm going to be able to live anymore if I lose my son in my old age. I'm going to go all the way down to Sheol, as the text says. So let's see here. Reuben seems to be the only righteous one here somewhat. He's like, I told you guys, I told you if I would have got him out of that pit, none of this would have happened. And I guess in a way Yahuwah's looking at his mentality like, all right, this guy's at least trying now. Compared to what Reuben did, early on with his father's wife. So Reuben, I think Reuben gets redeemed a little bit in this story.
Yeah, I think so.
He's like actually trying to be a loving brother. And he's pissed off at Judah and them because they're being stupid trying to sell their brother. And Judah, in a way, kind of represents Judas in this story.
In the South.
Because he sells out his brother. Oh no, we gotta make money off it.
Yeah.
It's like the Pharisees and Judas Iscariot. Oh yeah, here you go. Here's 30 coins of silver for your trouble. And I just find that interesting that the person Judah, which has the same name as the betrayer, so I just kind of find that funny.
It cracks me up when Jacob looks at them and says, "What are you looking at each other? What are you standing there looking at each other?"
That is funny.
Men have followed down during the tides of time.
That
What are you
is
standing
funny.
there looking at each other.
Oh yeah, Jacob. He does not fall too far from the Abraham tree.
No,
I'll tell you right
man.
now.
But you're right, Brother Doug. Reuben finally, I feel like when I was reading, he did finally do something and redeemed himself a bit because anything about Reuben was always not in a very good light through most of scriptures. And here, this is how I felt about him too. He stepped up to the plate finally and did a little bit of redeeming himself there. But great chapter. Great chapter.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Oh, I see Brother Joshua has his hand up. Go ahead, bro.
I have my doubts as to Reuben's motives as far as saying, because one, he was already looked at in a bad light. By him bringing Joseph back to his father, that would have put him in a good light. And then you have him saying in verse 30, when you go back to 37, verse 30, he says he returned to his so now when Reuben came back to the pit and did not see Yusuf in it, he rent his clothes and returned to his brothers and said, the boy is gone, and as for me, where am I to go now? So
Mm-hmm.
I read that it points to like an ulterior motive. Like he knew they put him in the pit. He was going to come back and take him out of the pit and restore him to his father. So I could be wrong on that, but that's when I read verse 30, that's what I get from that.
Oh yeah, I definitely think he had ulterior motives. He was definitely worried about himself, and what the curse he had on himself from, doing what he did to his father's bed. Pretty sure he was worried about that. So yeah, he definitely was thinking about himself more than he was thinking about Joseph. I would definitely agree 110% with that. That's what his motive was to try to get him back in good standing with his dad. So that makes sense. So we just did 42, right?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, I think, Mom.
I got 43.
Yep.
Okay. All right. The second journey to Egypt. Now the famine was still severe in the land. So when they had eaten all the grain they had brought from Egypt, their father said to them, go back and buy us a little more food. But Judah said to him, the man warned us solemnly, you will not see my face again unless your brother is with you. If you will send our brother along with us, we will go down and buy food for you. But if you will not send him, we will not go down, because the man said to us, you will not see my face again unless your brother is with you. Yashrael asked, why did you bring this trouble on me by telling the man you had another brother? They replied, the man questioned us closely about ourselves and our family. Is your father still living? He asked us. Do you have another brother? We simply answered his questions. How were we to know? He would say, bring your brother down here. Then Judah said to Yashrael, his father, send the boy along with me, and we will go at once, so that we and you and our children may live and not die. I myself will guarantee his safety. You can hold me personally responsible for him if I do not bring him back to you and set him here before you. I will bear the blame before you all my life. As it is, if we had not delayed, we could have gone and returned twice. Then their father, Yashrael, said to them, if it must be, then do this. Put some of the best products of the land in your bags and take them down to the man as a gift. A little balm and a little honey, some spices and myrrh, some pistachios, nuts and almonds. Take double the amount of silver with you, for you must return the silver that was put back into the mouths of your sacks. Perhaps it was a mistake. Take your brother also and go back to the man at once. And may Yahuwah Almighty grant you mercy before the man, so that he will let your other brother and Benjamin come back with you. As for me, if I am bereaved, I am bereaved. So the men took the gifts and double the amount of silver, and Benjamin also. They hurried down to Egypt and presented themselves to Joseph. When Joseph saw Benjamin with them, he said to the steward of his house, take these men to my house, slaughter an animal and prepare dinner. They are to eat with me at noon. The man did as Joseph told him and took the men to Joseph's house. Now the men were frightened when they were taken to his house. They thought, we were brought here because of the silver that was put back into our sacks the first time. He wants to attack us and overpower us and seize us as slaves and take our donkeys. So they went up to Joseph's steward and spoke to him at the entrance to the house. Please, sir, they said, we came down here the first time to buy food, but at the place where we stopped for the night, we opened our sacks and each of us found his silver, the exact weight, in the mouth of his sack. So we have brought it back with us. We have also brought additional silver with us to buy food. We don't know who put our silver in our sacks. It's all right, he said. Don't be afraid. Your Elohim and the Elohim of your father has given you treasure in your sacks. I received your silver. Then he brought Simeon out to them. The steward took the men into Joseph's house, gave them water to wash their feet, and provided fodder for their donkeys. They prepared their gifts for Joseph's arrival at noon because they had heard that they were to eat there. When Joseph came home, they presented to him the gifts they had brought into the house, and they bowed down before him to the ground. He asked them how they were, and then he said, how is your aged father you told me about? Is he still living? They replied, your servant, our father, is still alive and well. And they bowed low to pay him honor. As he looked about and saw his brothers, his brother Benjamin, his own mother's son, he asked, is this your youngest brother, the one you told me about? And he said, Yahuwah be gracious to you, my son. Deeply moved at the sight of his brother, Joseph hurried out and looked for a place to weep. He went into his private room and wept there. After he had washed his face, he came out and, controlling himself, said, serve the food. They served him by himself. The brothers by themselves, and the Egyptians who ate with them by themselves, because Egyptians could not eat with Hebrews, for that is detestable to Egyptians. The men had been seated before him in the order of their ages, from the firstborn to the youngest, and they looked at each other in astonishment. When portions were served to them from Joseph's table, Benjamin's portion was 5 times as much as anyone else's. So they feasted and drank freely with him. They had to have had a clue when he asked again about the father. I mean, you know, he was constantly asking about the father, and is he still alive? And they must have been thinking, why is this guy so interested in our father?
There's still a debate to this day why they wouldn't eat with the Hebrews. Yeah, so it's anyone's guess. The reason seems to be in the text later on, especially even in Exodus, it seems to be expounded on that they considered shepherds as abominations.
Yeah.
And they would not, they could not, eat with men that are shepherds that, take care of livestock. Go ahead, Brother Joshua.
Historically, they were conquered at one point by certain Canaanite tribe that were shepherds. This would have been before they came to Mitzrayim, before Yusuf and Yashral came to Mitzrayim. So it seems they still had a hatred towards their oppressors that were shepherds.
Ah, okay. And I think another traditional opinion, I think in other sources, was that the reason they also hated, or the reason that they thought shepherds were abomination was because the shepherds they would sacrifice. I remember looking into one thing where it's talking about, they would sacrifice, where Masha says to Pharaoh, he's like, we're not going to do our sacrifices here. That would be abomination to you guys. But, and there's, traditional historical expoundings that talk about, that they would be sacrificing the animals the Egyptians worshipped and that. So there seems to be like a lot to that, and why they but I think what you're talking about makes the most sense, is that they just despise them because they had a preconceived bias against shepherds. Now, did they worship the animals that the Hebrews would have sacrificed? Yeah, probably. But I don't think that's the reason they disliked them. They're probably it's way more probable the Canaanite thing. Yeah. Also, I thought it was interesting that the NLT towards the end of that chapter said that they despise the Hebrews. So I thought it was interesting there. Let's see what it says here. End of 43 here. It says, the Egyptians who ate with Yosef at their own table because the Egyptians despise Hebrews and refuse to eat with them. Interesting.
You're going to see that again as this story continues, when Pharaoh decides how to divide everybody up in living space, and he sends them to Goshen.
Yeah,
because
which actually Goshen is like barely even part of Egypt. When you
Right.
look at the Septuagint, it says Goshen of Arabia.
Huh.
So it's almost like he's sending them to a way, way other side of that geographic area. Like, so they're nowhere near the Egyptians.
Yeah, he couldn't have them living there.
But I've noticed in the LXX, it literally says Goshen of Arabia. The Masoretic text
Interesting.
takes out of Arabia. So I just find that interesting, because that has to be talking about Saudi Arabia. I would assume.
Mhm.
I would assume that's what it's talking about with Goshen.
Yeah.
So that'd be interesting if that's the case. What we call Saudi Arabia now,
Mhm.
if Goshen was part of that land. I don't know. That's something I want to look up, because every time
Yeah.
you see the word Goshen in the Septuagint, it says Goshen of Arabia. So I just want to see why that would be.
I think it's probably in Saudi Arabia.
Just to let's do Genesis to Leviticus search here, or no, Genesis to Exodus search. And just type in Goshen. Huh. It's not showing anything. That's a little weird. Sometimes my sword screws up a little bit. Look at that. Why it wouldn't show anything? That's weird. Very strange. Hold on a second. That's very strange. Trying to search Goshen there in the LXXE, and it's not pulling up any verses. That's a little weird. Got a little glitch going on. Anyway.
All right, let me tell you what I'm seeing here. So Goshen is part of Egypt. Give me a second here. The translators of the Septuagint obviously considered it and the Sinai. I don't know. In Saudi Arabia. Theses continue to appeal to Galatians 4:25 as a supporting argument for their theory. Shows the first century teacher would have understood Okay, all right, what? Trying to think if they're saying yes or no. They're saying it's in Egypt, but that the translators thought it like Mount Sinai was, I don't know, it's a little up in the air.
Well, Mom, what it's saying is that Mount Sinai also was Saudi Arabia.
Right, and that I knew.
Which geography actually proves that, by the
Right.
way.
Mhm.
Real geography proves that today,
Mhm.
that Saudi Arabia is the real location
Yeah,
of
yeah,
Mount Sinai, not what Judaism teaches today.
Right,
But if you look in the New Testament, right in the book of Galatians,
yeah, well, that's what that was saying.
it kind of points it right there that that's where the real Mount Sinai was. So I would not be surprised if Yahuwah would have them in Saudi Arabia. That's not too far fetched.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's, not too far fetched at all. But yeah, according to the Septuagint, that's what I'm seeing in my Septuagint, is that it's claiming that Goshen is in not Mount Sinai, that Goshen's in Saudi Arabia.
Saudi Arabia, yeah.
Yeah, you gotta click on one of these links. That's probably why you were getting confused. Yeah, so it talks about proponents, Mount Sinai, Galatians 4:25. Where was Arabia in the 1st century AD? So there's a couple of bullet points, interesting bullet points in this article. Yeah, I don't agree with this guy's approach. He's completely unvalidating historical anachronisms. He's missing the whole point. It doesn't matter what Moses used. We don't have what Moses wrote. So he's missing the whole point. So I hate it when people do that. Well, Moses didn't write Arabia originally. Yeah, no duh. If you could find me the original scriptures, we'll have a conversation here, but you gotta go with what we have. But anyway, it would make more sense to me anyway. This is just my opinion, that it was in Saudi Arabia. Because if he's going to send them to their own plot of land where they're not going to have to worry about being right next to the Egyptians, it would just make sense. If Goshen's in Egypt, and it kind of makes sense too now, it would actually make it even easier for Yahuwah to do what he did with the plagues. If you think about it, they're nowhere near the Egyptians, then there's no way that those plagues would hit them. But I don't know, it's kind of interesting. But yeah, you can look into that yourself. Unfortunately, I can't find it on my MySword right now because my MySword's not working correctly. I don't know why. Why it's not working correctly. Oh, they pronounce it differently in the Greek. They got Gesem. That's why. Okay, so for example, Genesis 45:10, Gesem of Arabia. 46 verse 34, Gesem of Arabia. Let's see here. Gesem. And Yashrael dwelt in Egypt in the land of Gesem, and they gained an inheritance upon it. So that's more geography to look up to see where exactly in Egypt does it connect to Saudi Arabia.
That would be interesting.
Because it might be on like the way outskirts of Egypt is probably what's going on. That's what I'm thinking. Let me just see here. I could find something here. Does Egypt connect to Saudi Arabia?
Okay, quick question.
Yep, go ahead.
The Masoretic rendering versus the Septuagint rendering of the Exodus, the Masoretic would give you a different date on the Exodus by at least 200 to 300 years, right?
I think, yeah. Let's see here. Yeah, because if they're, I wonder, would they give, I think it might give a different. Well, I don't know if they give you a different date, but they definitely give you a different amount of time they were in Egypt for.
Yeah, which ultimately would give you a different date.
Yeah. It's still 434 years though, so I don't know how much that would differ by. They're just telling you that supposedly they were in Egypt for 434 years. So if the person doesn't know though that they were prior 200 something years in Canaan, yeah, that would give you a different date. That's like a added 400 years about. So you would have that would completely contradict where Paul talks about there was 400 something years between Abraham and giving of the law. So then you would have to add a couple hundred years to that. So then it makes Paul look like a liar pretty much. Let me see if I can find that verse. I think it's in Acts. There was between Abraham and giving of the law was 400 years. Yep. So Galatians 3:17 literally says 430. Yeah. And that's how we know that the Masoretic version can't be correct, because Paul's literally saying from Abraham to Moses was 430 years. So the whole time of them being in Canaan, Egypt, and Abraham's sojournings have to equal up to 430 years. So yeah, that's Galatians 3:17 there. And there's blogs about this. They're like, well, why is Paul contradicting scripture? Shouldn't it have been 645 years? And I'm just shaking my head. I'm like, this is what happens when we have blind trust in the Masoretes. This is what happens. And then we start thinking Paul is like some kind of weirdo that doesn't know what he's talking about. Yeah. He understands correct history. It's the fact that the Masoretes want to revise every little thing about their own history. That's what's going on. Same thing with Deuteronomy 32. They want to change sons of Elohim to sons of Israel. So they want to think that they want to make people think that Yahuwah gave them sovereignty over all the 70 nations. So anyway, so yeah, that definitely would screw up the Exodus. You would at least be having an extra 200 years. So that would mean the Exodus would happen about 200 years later, which actually would affect the time that Moshe is being given the law and writing the Torah. So let's say, right, that 1500 BC is a somewhat accurate number that he originally wrote the Torah. Now, because they changed Exodus 12 to say that they were in Egypt alone for 400 and something years, not including Canaan, now you got to add 200 years less. So now 200 years even later than that, Moshe would have been writing the Torah. I mean, it screws everything up. It's like a domino effect. It screws everything up.
I brought the question up because I was looking at someone's argument, like historical argument. Just if you go with his argument, because he was, granted, he was admitting that the date that most people were getting was coming from the Masoretic text. He admitted that. But the date that you get when reading the Masoretic text it makes it historically impossible. Like if you're tracing other elements of history, like Egyptian history of the Canaanites, like it just, I'm not going to read everything that he said, but it just makes it historically impossible.
Doesn't line up.
So they mess with things, they change dates. They don't realize that it just completely screws everything up, man.
Yeah,
Makes us look like liars.
It's a domino effect. Everything gets affected by that. Everything gets affected by it, like you said. So it's like, okay, you change one thing, now another thing changes, another thing changes, another thing changes.
That's right.
You know, but you know,
Like they say, a lie always has to cover another lie, another lie, and another lie.
just for them to make it possible for Shem,
Right.
just for them to make it possible, adding to Sister Sadia's point, for Shem to be still alive when when he supposedly would have been meeting Abraham in Genesis 14, they would have to add ages onto every genealogy and change the genealogy so that Shem would somehow be some Superman living up until like 700-800 years old just to meet Abraham. That just ridiculous. Just because they hate Yahusha so much, they don't want him to be Melchizedek in Genesis 14. Oh, the Masoretes are going to go, oh, okay, let's add 10 years to this guy, 10 years to that guy. Boom, 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 boom. And then all of a sudden you have Shem now, you know, still alive in Genesis 14. It's ridiculous. It's really petty for them to do that just to try to get out of it. It's extremely petty.
You know what makes me really believe that too is that as they did the rewrites in my King James study, they missed 4 times where it spells Y-A-H. Normally they always put God there. But where I have 4 places in my King James study where it literally spells out Yah. So it's like they were trying to change the word, but Abba didn't let them. He let them miss these 4 names of Yahuwah, Abba Yah. They let them stay in our books. Isn't that crazy? Big mistake when I first crossed over, that was what Yahuwah showed me. And I'm like going, oh my goodness. Mind you, that I had already highlighted it and put my hands up, like I drew 2 hands up, but I never took it to heart until I started researching more. So I had saw this years ago, but never did anything about it. Is that not insane? You know, because Abba has his time and he knows when we're going to accept it. And you know, I mean, I think that's beautiful, but you know, we got to be wise enough to look at the truth here, because they literally, the lying pins, the scribes, they literally say they took out his name wherever it says God and Lord in capital, it should have been Yahuwah. So they told on themselves. Now it's up to us to do what's different. And like in my Bible, wherever I see God, I put Yah or I put Al, or however I feel at that moment that the Father's talking to me, or how I sense it. I'll change everything. Every J is turned into a Y. as I'm reading. So that way, whoever gets my Bible after I'm gone, they're not going to struggle much. You know?
Hallelujah. Yeah. So, all right, trying to get back on topic here. I'm trying to get my thoughts back together here. So we were talking about this. We got on this topic because of the Saudi Egypt causeway.
Right.
This is great.
One little pebble that goes down to the next one.
No, this is what happens though. You got something
is.
like this that just somehow gets down another rabbit trail. But according to this Wikipedia article, supposedly there is an extension that would kind of allow you to travel from Saudi Arabia to Egypt, and it actually looks like there's a connection. What's weird is that on most maps they put Sinai as part of Egypt, and that's where the whole controversy is. It doesn't even make sense for Sinai to be in Egypt. First of all, they're leaving Egypt to go to Sinai. Why would Sinai be where they're already at?
Right.
Doesn't make any sense. Yeah. But what this map is showing here is that, like, right on the edge of Egypt, the edge of Egypt connects with the edge of Saudi Arabia. So they could like travel with Yahuwah parting the sea. They could easily travel to Saudi Arabia. All that would have to happen is Yahuwah parts the Red Sea there, boom. But there was archaeologists that found out the true location of Mount Sinai, and I'm not talking about that guy. There was another person, but there was multiple people that found out what we consider today Mount Sinai is not Mount Sinai, and due to archaeological evidence, like I forget what some of the evidence was. There was like the whole something with the water coming out of the rock. Supposedly that's still there to this day when he split the rock open and all that. So when Yahuwah split the rock open, that's still there to this day. Oh yeah, there's more than enough evidence whether it happened or not. Even Egyptology today admits it happened. Now they get the whole dates wrong because, they don't believe in a little 6-day creation, but they definitely don't deny it happened. Just like every ancient culture knows the flood happened. They're not denying the flood event. They just have different views on it. They have anti-biblical views of it. But anyway, yeah, that's something I want to look more into is, how much proof we have that that Goshen would be in Arabia. So that's something I want to look more into. But anyway, I think that would be interesting. Anyway, don't have anything else I want to add. I think that's going to be it for today. I think we might close the study for today. How far did we get to, Mom? 43?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So please stay tuned, everyone. We will be on next week.
Love you, brother. Get rest.
Love you too, sis. So we'll be, if we're willing, we'll be going Genesis 44 to 48 next week. So please stay tuned, everyone. If you like our videos, please subscribe. Click on the notification bell so you're notified whenever we do a study. And all the brothers and sisters out there, just want to say, have a great rest of your show. Please, I just want to say I hope everyone's getting ready for our next appointed time that's coming up. So definitely we want to focus on that. Humbling ourselves and starting getting ready to humble ourselves for Yom Kippur, which is happening next week, this upcoming week. So, yeah. All right.
Excuse me, what day is that next week?